Hi, everyone.
Hey, everybody. Great
All
to be
right.
back.
Hope everyone's good out there, and welcome to Open Class. Before we start, actually, how are things been this week in the school in our self-coaching program? I mean, there's more people, more interaction.
Yeah, really good. Good group. One of our students, really sharing a lot, and we know him really well, and it's great. And then we have coaches that are becoming certified, and it's a really good time in the school. There's a lot of interaction going on, and I look forward to the Zoom coming up in an hour.
Exactly. Yeah. For those of you who are kind of new to the channel here, me and Coach Michael, what do you call it? Moderate our forum every other week and do the drop-in class every other week. So
yeah,
very cool. Well, let us jump in here and ask some questions. Let me share my screen. So I think it is firstly, I'm probably going to say this wrong, but Firdaus. Let's read this. I have trouble falling asleep sometimes for 3 days. I don't sleep. I don't nap, and I try to be active in the day, even if it is hard. I tried sleep restriction, but that's not working. I have insomnia since early September after I was given medication for my tonsillitis. As I read this message, it's kind of fascinating how much, it's a very short message, but even in that short message, there is so much I think you can tell from it. But let's go. What are your first kind of like reactions when you read this?
Yeah, it's a really common story, which makes me feel really optimistic, when I hear that. And I think, insomnia can be triggered by just about anything, and then it perpetuates by the thought change, the worry about sleep anxiety, the hyperarousal associated with not sleeping, and so trying to exercise more, trying to do specific things to generate sleep. Those are the sleep efforts that tend to kick in. So it's something, it's thought change that I think is really the best route, for Firdaus, I think is how we're pronouncing it.
Yeah.
So those were just things that came to mind just right away.
Yeah, absolutely. What I thought when I read this was similarly that, okay, we have someone, Firdaus, was probably doing well, never thought about sleep until he or she had they had some type of procedure, was given a medication, and there was probably some stress around that time and some sleeplessness, which is natural, and then there was a medication, and then at some point the brain was like, whoa, you're not sleeping much, you have insomnia. And as tricky as it is, that's the moment when you start having trouble sleeping, is when the brain starts identifying a problem. If the brain hadn't been like, there's a problem, there hadn't been one. And that leads us to, of course, like when the brain thinks there's a problem, you do things like Coach Michael pointed out, like you try to exercise more, that didn't work. I tried sleep restriction, that didn't work. Anything you do with the intent of like, this is going to make me sleep, that's not going to work. So I want to say, Firdaus, very common story. Just spend some time here, learn a little bit more, you'll do really well. And for anyone who's thinking like, Coach Michael said, I'm optimistic because this is a very common story. My story is really complex. So should I not be optimistic? Everybody should be optimistic. Right. It's just that when your story is very, very common, it may be a little bit of maybe an easier path than if a lot of things have been on for years and really complicated. That is true. All right. Yeah. So let's, Melena's here.
Hey, Melena.
Hey, Melena. Nice seeing you. Very well. So let's go on with number 2. And this is somebody we know very well. This is from Dawn. Hi, Daniel. Hope you are well. It's Dawn, one of your former BedTyme clients and a regular to your YouTube channel. Absolutely. And I know, Dawn is so supportive, not on YouTube, but on Instagram, Facebook. Thanks so much, Dawn. Just a quick question. I really was sleeping so well after I graduated from your app, but now I'm starting to have trouble sleeping again. The problem is falling asleep. It seems to have to take forever. And I can't seem to switch off my mind. Stupid little things which I wouldn't worry about in the day come alive at night. I'm so well educated on sleep now, thanks to you and your channel. But the one thing that I don't want is for this spiral to spiral out of control and have that big one again. Do you think I should do a thought download before I get into bed? I thought about joining your app again, but to be honest, I know pretty much there is all there is to know about sleep, but this is troubling me a little. I would just like your thoughts on this. Thanks again, Dan. Absolutely, Don. Thank you so much for sharing this, and you'll get both of our thoughts today, both mine and Coach Michael's here. But I can start with this one. So I want to say that just big picture, this is super common, nothing unusual at all. You know, you've done a program like BedTyme and you do really well, and then you have some trouble later on. Nothing unusual at all. I think that the most important is always to me is to, and you know this, Don, I'm just pointing this for everyone else. Whenever, even if you just slept well one night or 2 weeks or 3 days, whenever you slept well, there's no question where that came from. It came from a place where you weren't trying to sleep. And another way to say the same thing is I like this analogy of two people. One is Kim, and Kim is like, sleeping less than 7 hours is completely unacceptable. I'm going to do everything in my power to not lose a minute of sleep. And then we have Chloe, who's like, whatever happens, it's all right. And we know intuitively that Chloe's going to sleep better, right? And you became Chloe, Don. You know, you went to a place where it's okay if I don't sleep. It's okay if I'm awake at night. Whatever happens is all right. That's what led you to sleep so well. Always remember that. That always takes you away from effort, and you've already experienced the magic, right? Now, what if, like, you know, these thoughts pop up at night, though? Like, you know, what if I can't sleep tonight? Which is so natural when you've had a lot of trouble sleeping, right? And you go like, how can I don't want to have this thought. That's not a helpful thought. How can I switch off my brain? Well, that is that territory of resistance again. That the more, it's kind of like when you have a conversation with somebody, like, let's say this classical political conversation, like two people of different political opinions. The more you try to convince the other person, the more he tries to convince you, the more it becomes like a fight, you know? Same thing with your own mind. The more you have thoughts and you're like, go away thoughts. What can I do about this? I don't want to have this thought. The more the brain goes like, oh, you got to listen to this.
Yeah.
So the paradoxical thing is there's like, yeah, listening is really good. So I do believe that, you know, doing like a daily thought download, 5 minutes a day, just write down all those things that's really helpful. And again, not like doing this thought download is going to control my thoughts. Not at all. The complete opposite. Doing like a little download every day, just writing down my thoughts without any intent and purpose, that is going to show the brain that I'm listening, which kind of, when you have an argument with somebody, if you yourself unilaterally go like, okay, I'm going to stop trying to convince this person. I'm going to listen. I'm going to really listen now. Then the other person goes like, oh, he's listening. I don't have to shout. And then everything becomes better. So those are kind of my big thoughts here, big picture thoughts here. So what are yours, Michael?
Yeah. You know, when I read that email, I what came to my mind were 3 words that I think are basically the same thing, and that's attention, focus, and effort. And those are the 3 that I usually kind of use when I'm talking to someone about their sleep. And, you know, insomnia just thrives on all 3 of those. It's when you're focused on the sleep that sleep gets more difficult, because you're trying to control something that can't be controlled, really. And Don, I know that you know this. I love the idea of the thought download. More and more, I find that's just so helpful. And, you know, I've changed over time with that. I used to think, well, yeah, write some things down, things that you need to do, things that you need to take care of, you know, and make sure you do those things so that you make the thought go away. Well, you can't do it. You really can't. You know, I mean, if you know you're concerned about your sleep or how someone is, or what, I mean, you just kind of just write it down. Your brain recognizes that you are aware of these thoughts, and then they're less likely to come up at night. They're less likely to be as strong at night if you are acknowledging them during the day. So it's a simple activity, and I think it's not an effort. It's simply working with your thoughts, right? You're always going to have thoughts. They kind of come and go, and you can't control them, but you can acknowledge them. And it's very important to you know, acknowledge the things, that any negative thoughts or concerns or worries that are on your mind, and then your brain tends to not grab onto those at night. You know, it tends to say, okay, you know that thing is happening, you know that thought is around now and then. Okay, so it's a way, again, to teach your brain that you're there. and you're aware of these things. So I personally think that's really helpful, for just helping with thoughts, helping with negative thoughts and worries.
100%. And I'll just add one last thing until we move on to the next one, which is that oftentimes you've had like Don says, like the big one, a time where you really struggle with sleep, and then you got to a place where you sleep well, and then of course the thought of going there again is really scary.
Yeah.
But and this is so hard to teach, but it is really that the more you resist, like I cannot have the big one again. That cannot happen again. The more trouble you're gonna have, and the more you're like, the big
Right.
one is probably not gonna happen because I know so much. But just if that thought happens, like what if the big one comes again? I'm not gonna push that. The more you can go towards like whatever happens is all right. I'm willing to experience even that discomfort, the more free you're gonna be.
Yeah. Even kind of playing it out in your head a little bit, like what would happen, kind of play it out, and then you realize there's really nothing there. It would be fine.
Let's jump to the next one. This is from Dylan. Hi, I have a fear of not being able to sleep and the side effects I will get if I don't sleep. I try to go to bed early, but end up laying awake for a long time. As hours pass, I start to get more anxiety, which I know is keeping me up. I'm very nervous about not being able to sleep throughout the whole night. I feel like my life is based around if I will be able to sleep. I guess my question is, what do you think is the best way to approach this issue? And it sounds like the core, like one of the core of them is like health related. Like what will these side effects be? So anyway, what are your immediate thoughts when you hear this, Michael?
Yeah, I think that worry about sleep is really what happens when someone has a poor night or two, and then that kind of blossoms into an insomnia issue. There aren't any, there's no evidence that insomnia is causing any harm to your health. The effects of insomnia are generally, worry and anxiety about sleep. It can make worry and anxiety about other things greater as well. But there's no physical harm or any lasting permanent damage of any kind that's ever been shown. So, that's just a fact that's helpful to remind yourself when you're struggling with your sleep. I think Dylan mentioned maybe trying to like go to bed earlier. That's a really common strategy. A lot of people with insomnia do that. They want to be in bed in case they fall asleep, or they equate time in bed with sleep time. It's not necessarily the case. So that could be kind of a slippery slope. You might want to, just make sure that you're feeling, more than tired when you climb into bed. It's just kind of a basic suggestion that is helpful. The longer you're in bed with the light off, lying there, trying, the more your brain is kind of worrying and convinced that there's a problem with being awake at night. And so it's just kind of like a bit of a breeding ground for worry and anxiety about sleep. So you want to be careful about that. I like the fuzzy bedtime, just kind of, wait till you feel sleepy, and learn to get good at recognizing that is very helpful. And then when you recognize that sleepiness kind of feeling, then that's time for bed, and that's really about it. So, but the other side, the health side, there's no evidence that some sleep loss and insomnia causes anything harmful to your health.
Absolutely. And I didn't pick up on that, but it's exactly like you said, Michael. I try to go to bed early, but end up laying awake for a long time. And just like you said, that when I read that, that's kind of those like low hanging fruit. I said like, oh, that's pretty easy to change. Just go to bed later. And when you feel sleepy, when you feel ready, and get up about the same time every morning. So I think, just spend a little more time learning on the channel, and you'll do great. Let us know if you have follow-up questions, Dylan. And then let's go to the last one, which is from Ashley. Let's read this. I was curious. I only read the first line. It's a bit of a crazy story. So that made me curious. Let's see here. Hi, Daniel. I have a bit of a crazy story. I did one illicit drug and then acupuncture the next day. and my sleep disappeared completely. For the first 2 months, I was not worried about it and thought it was a fluke. This is totally physiological, and my nutritionist believed there was a switch in my nervous system. I did make some progress and slept for almost a week straight with no meds, but it came back with a vengeance. I panicked. I went to a psychiatrist, got prescribed Xanax and Restoril. It's weird because neither worked. And for a month, I could only sleep on Tuesday. Then it went to I could sleep every other day and then some every night. Keep in mind that this was sleeping on pills, Ambien, Xanax, Trazodone. Fast forward, I'm off the Xanax now, and they gave me gabapentin for withdrawals and also Seroquel to sleep. The doctor said I would need to retrain my brain to sleep, which sounds so tricky. Should I stop all meds? And how long do you think the rebound insomnia will last after a week off of Xanax? This is crazy. I slept well for all 34 years of my life up until that weekend. I'm wondering if not this is a bit psychological, or maybe even still a bit physical, or some kind of chemical imbalance. Please help. I want to be free of meds. The other night I took a gabapentin, slept a little for about 5 hours, woke up, I felt completely relaxed, but just could not go back to sleep. I'm so worried about my life and my job, just bought a house, etc. Sorry for the novel. Do you think CBTI can help me, and should I just get off all the meds and wait for sleep to return to normal? All right, Ashley, thanks so much for sharing this. And again, actually, very, very common story, Ashley. And I'll share my thoughts first, and then we'll let Coach Michael share his. So again, it's a typical starting point. You know, you did some illicit drugs and you had acupuncture, and then you didn't sleep at all. It was something new, something unusual. Maybe it was excitement, or maybe it was some stress, some kind of hyper arousal. You were in a little bit higher alert state, then you didn't sleep at all. Completely unremarkable, actually. That is completely unremarkable. But then you have that thing where the brain focuses, oh, this is a problem, and then you try things, you know. Then you go see a nutritionist, you get prescribed medications, you do this and that, and the more you try, the more focus, the more effort, the more things, the more slippery it becomes. And one thing I really want to point out is this one, which I call it the what do I call it again? The type 2 conclusion, which simply means that you have concluded that something is wrong because something didn't do anything. And this is so common when somebody says, I don't sleep even if I take Xanax and Ambien, and I still don't sleep. That must mean that something is really wrong, doesn't it? No, it only means that you're really hyper aroused. You're worried a lot, because medications cannot make you sleep. They can only kind of sedate you, but they cannot produce sleep. So the fact that you don't sleep, even if you take medications, is nothing strange or unusual at all. It's not even surprising. And let me just quickly check here. That was one of the kind of specific. Okay, how long does rebound insomnia last if I get off Xanax? Really interesting question there, because it's so different. Some people are just like, I stopped taking all my medications and I sleep great. And other people are like, it was a long taper for me. I tapered over 2 months and something like that. So to me, it really, what determines how you sleep is how you think. If someone is really anxious and worried when they come off Xanax, they'll probably have a lot of rebound insomnia. If somebody comes off of it and they're not thinking a lot about it, then less. So I think, again, education is what really helps there. And what else? Okay, do you think CBTI can help me, and should I just get off all the meds and wait for us sleep? I think if you would sort of like just say, I'm going to stop taking all these meds and just see what happens, I think that is tricky, because you are all, in my opinion, you're almost guaranteed to be like, that's going to actually become some kind of effort. You're going to come off all the medications and be like, okay, it's been 1 night, no medications, and I don't sleep. It's been 2 nights, no medications. It's been 3, 4, 5. I can't take this anymore. I got to take some medication. And you take the medication and you think that it was the not taking medications that made you have insomnia. And then when you take them again, it seems like, yeah, this is evidence that I can't sleep on my own. But in reality, it's just when you come off medications, you're thinking so much about how you're going to sleep off of them that produces insomnia. So I think it's tricky to just, without any education or anything else, just stop taking everything and see what happens. And so does CBTI work? Well, I think the combination of like education, some habit change, and like support and guidance is magic. That is the way. If you find somebody that does CBTI in a compassionate way and an understanding way, and that's not so focused on like these techniques like bedtime restriction, sleep restriction, then it can be really, really helpful. CBTI is tricky because it's kind of a lot of focus on like just, you know, calculating how much time you're in bed and calculating sleep efficiency, and that is not helpful. But I think learning is great. Spend some time here, learn, and I think that's always the best. So I'll leave it there. Michael, what do you think?
Yeah, interesting email. You know, I don't offer medical advice, of course, but you know, the medication, you know, it's pretty classic when someone just abruptly stops taking something for sleep that they're pretty sure is, you know, needed for sleep in their mind, then it almost always produces what they call rebound insomnia. You know, it's usually kind of insomnia with a vengeance, right? It like kind of comes roaring back. And you know, the reason is that isn't because the chemical that you take is making you sleep, because it doesn't. It just, like Coach Daniel said, it kind of sedates you. It does some indirect, some they're all different, you know, but some do sort of indirect things in your brain, you know, but generally they kind of sedate you, and don't really produce natural sleep. So what happens when someone is taking this, that, or more, something, you know, their confidence has been put into that chemical. Like they believe that is what is needed to sleep. And then, like you said, when they stop taking it, you know, a couple, 2, 3, 4 nights, they're not sleeping, then they're so sleepy. They have so much hyperarousal, but they're so sleepy. It's like the gas and the brake are just both to the floor. Then they sedate themselves a little bit and their natural sleepiness just overwhelms them. But that's not a good way to live, right? You know, you want to understand through education that natural sleepiness is unavoidable. It's a homeostatic drive. It builds over time, and that's it. You know, you can't do anything else to produce natural sleep. So it becomes a change in thinking that's needed, that understanding that the medications are not producing sleep, that you went from having no problem from the email, no problem at all, and then an incident, you know, with some drug and acupuncture and who knows what you were thinking at the time, but all of a sudden the hyperarousal just shot straight up when you had a rough night of sleep. And that's a really specific thing that happened, but you have to understand that right before that, I think you were probably sleeping just fine from what I'm just
For
guessing,
35
you know,
years,
from the
yeah.
email. Yeah. So that really abrupt change, you know, it's just the worry and anxiety and hyperarousal, all of that regarding being awake at night just kicked into high gear. So you have to teach your brain again that, you know, sleep happens naturally, that you can't fight it. You know, you can fight it, but you can't force it. So you have to really have, you know, a good understanding of how normal sleep works, how insomnia develops, and learn like the steps towards changing your thinking about your sleep.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, and a question I realized that becomes kind of unanswered here is like, what do I do? Well, it's because there's no simple answer to that one, but I think the big picture is like learning. And then when someone wants to come off medication, I think the most important is like that you talk to your prescriber, of course, but also like you decide on something and then follow that plan. What so many people do, I think I'm going to try and not come off. I'm going to try this. I'm going to try that. That never works. It's like I decide I'm going to go off this way, or I'm going to go off maybe slowly, but then kind of stick to that plan is really the way. And yeah, I think that's it. No live questions, and yeah, we'll be back next week.
Yeah, great. Right. Good to see you. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, take care now.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.